Really interesting. I mean, sadly, the pandemic has had an impact on a lot of young people's lives. But those skills and experiences of, that normal are absolutely constant. For years, one royal has quietly stayed out of the spotlight, while the rest of the royal family have been making headlines, whether for scandals, feuds, or fairy tale weddings. Prince Edward has managed to fly under the radar. No drama, no fuss. But that all changed recently. Now his name is splashed across headlines, all because of 5 unexpected words. I tried to warn her. The question on everyone's mind: who was he warning, and about what? What could have made the Queen's youngest son break his silence after all this time? Buckle up. The royalty is piping hot and we're spilling every drop. Prince Edward tried to warn her. For the longest time, many people thought King Charles, Prince Andrew, and Princess Anne were Queen Elizabeth, the second only children. That's mainly because her youngest son, Prince Edward, has always stayed out of the spotlight. While his siblings made headlines for everything from royal duties to personal drama, Edward kept things quiet. No scandals, no fuss. But recently that silence broke, and not in a small way. Out of nowhere, Prince Edward drew attention with 5 words that stopped people in their tracks. I tried to warn her. Suddenly, everyone wanted to know who was he talking about, and what exactly was the warning. Keep watching to find out. A lot of fingers have pointed toward Meghan Markle. Given all the tension between her and the royal family since she and Prince Harry stepped down in 2020, many believe the warning had something to do with her. Edward hasn't explained what he meant, but that hasn't stopped people from trying to piece it together. Over the past few years, he's made a few comments that now seem even more telling. At one point, he described the situation with Meghan and Harry as very sad. He said what they were going through wasn't easy, and added that family issues are always complicated. He also said he wished them the very best. When Harry and Meghan named their daughter Lilibet, after the Queen's private family nickname, Edward congratulated them and called it fantastic news. Still, there was a sense that the royal family felt uncomfortable with the choice, even if they didn't say so directly. He also admitted that it was hard seeing things play out so publicly. He hinted at how painful it can be to live under constant scrutiny, saying that every member of the family has had the spotlight thrown on them, and that everyone copes differently. Many felt that was a quiet nod to Meghan and Harry's highly public exit and all the attention that followed. Then there was that moment when he and his wife, Sophie, were asked about the Oprah interview. Rather than diving into details, they joked about it. Edward replied with a dry, "Oprah who?" And Sophie added, "What interview?" Later, she even defended the Archbishop of Canterbury, who apparently had a long chat with Oprah at the royal wedding without knowing who she was. Sophie pointed out that not everyone watches talk shows, especially in the UK. The comment was lighthearted, but it definitely raised eyebrows. Since Harry and Meghan left, and with Prince Andrew stepping back from royal duties, Edward and Sophie have quietly taken on more responsibility. They've been seen more often, attending events, handling royal engagements, and speaking on behalf of the family. After Prince Philip's death, they were among the first to talk to the press, and they've since become more visible in the public eye. People have started calling them the royal family's new ambassadors. While others were caught up in drama or scandal, Edward and Sophie were simply doing the work. No noise, no show. Just steady, loyal service. Still, despite all the calm and quiet, those 5 words, I tried to warn her, have turned attention back on the royal who's usually overlooked. Whether it was a warning ignored or something he wishes he'd said louder, one thing is clear. Prince Edward may have stayed silent for years, but now everyone is paying attention and listening. But with this renewed attention on the royal, many people have begun asking, who really is Prince Edward? Becoming the Duke of Edinburgh. In 2023, it was official that Prince Edward now holds the title that once belonged to his late father, Prince Philip. On his 59th birthday, King Charles granted him the Dukedom of Edinburgh, one of the most respected titles in the royal family. According to a statement from Buckingham Palace, the title is Edward's for life. His wife Sophie is now the Duchess of Edinburgh, and together they're expected to carry on Prince Philip's legacy, especially in supporting young people and creating equal opportunities for all backgrounds. The title of Duke of Edinburgh carries a deep history. It was first given to Prince Philip in 1947 when he married then Princess Elizabeth. For 5 years before she became Queen, she was known as the Duchess of Edinburgh. So, in many ways, this passing of the title is more than symbolic. It's a tribute. It connects Prince Edward not just to his father, but to the Queen herself. But what's even more fascinating is how long this moment has been in the making. For years, it was widely believed that Edward would one day become Duke of Edinburgh. But for a long time, he remained the Earl of Wessex, a title he received on his wedding day in 1999. That made him the only son of Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip who didn't carry a dukedom. His brothers, King Charles and Prince Andrew, became the Dukes of Cornwall and York, respectively. Many wondered why Edward didn't get a dukedom like his brothers. It turns out the answer was both surprising and personal. A royal courtier once revealed that Edward had actually been set to become the Duke of Cambridge, but after watching the film Shakespeare in Love, he was drawn to a character named Lord Wessex. The name had a certain charm, and Edward reportedly asked the Queen if he could have it instead. She agreed, and so he became the Earl of Wessex. Wessex, for context, isn't even a present-day region in the UK. It was an ancient Anglo-Saxon kingdom, tied to legends of King Arthur and often featured in the novels of Thomas Hardy. Choosing a name from legend rather than geography showed Edward's unique character, someone clearly less focused on tradition and more on personal preference. Even so, the title of Earl always seemed like a placeholder. After Prince Philip's death, the title Duke of Edinburgh technically reverted to the crown. That meant it went to King Charles, who could then choose whether or not to pass it on. Though he wasn't required to do so, many believed Charles would honor the original wish that Edward would inherit the title eventually. And now, that's exactly what has happened. In many ways, this move balances out the royal brothers. While Charles now wears the crown, and Andrew has kept his title despite controversy, Edward has quietly worked behind the scenes, never courting drama or headlines. His new role as Duke of Edinburgh feels like a long-awaited recognition of his loyalty, dedication, and closeness to both his parents. The update has also been made on the royal family's official website, reflecting Edward's new position in the family. And while titles may not matter to the average person, in the royal world they carry weight, history, and responsibility. For Edward and Sophie, the new Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, this marks the beginning of a new chapter, one built on legacy, service, and a very royal kind of second act. But even the most dedicated royals need an anchor, someone who keeps them grounded when the crown feels heavy and the spotlight too harsh. For Edward, that steady presence has always been just one person, who has been holding Prince Edward down. Amidst all the royal drama, Prince Edward and Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, have become one of the most solid and admired couples in the royal family. In a world where royal marriages often crumble under pressure, theirs has not only endured, but thrived. On their 25th wedding anniversary, June 19, 2024, the couple stood stronger than ever, a true proof of love, commitment, and a lasting friendship. Earlier that year, in March, as Edward celebrated his 60th birthday, the emotional depth of their relationship was on full display. During a royal engagement in Leeds, Sophie surprised her husband with a rare, heartfelt tribute. She described him as the best father, the most loving husband, and her dearest friend. She reflected on how deeply moved and proud they were to receive the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh titles from the king. Her words left Edward visibly emotional, especially as she drew comparisons between him and his father, Prince Philip, two men devoted to family and duty. Her toast ended with a simple yet powerful line. "Here's to you, my darling Edward. May I, along with your family, friends, and so many others, wish you the happiest of birthdays." Edward, too, showed just how much Sophie and their children mean to him. While speaking on Alan Titchmarsh's radio show, he called his family brilliant and made it clear that his love and pride for Sophie, Lady Louise, and James ran deep. The pair's strength as a couple has been tested many times through family grief, public scrutiny, and personal setbacks. But through it all, they've moved in unity. They are now the only one of Queen Elizabeth, the second 4 children, who remain married to their first spouse. So how did it all begin? Edward was just 23 when he met 22-year-old Sophie Rhys-Jones at Capital Radio in 1987, where she worked in public relations. Sparks didn't fly right away. In fact, Edward was dating one of Sophie's friends at the time. Their real connection didn't happen until 6 years later, in 1990, when Sophie was hired to manage publicity for one of Edward's charity events, a real tennis challenge. They bonded over sports, the outdoors, and a shared love for the arts. Their first proper date was reportedly a tennis match, followed by dinner at Buckingham Palace. By the end of that year, whispers of their romance reached the press. Biographer Andrew Morton was one of the first to catch wind. With the media buzzing, Edward took an unusual step. He released a personal statement asking the press to back off. He urged them not to destroy the part of his life he felt should remain private, and above all, to respect Sophie's privacy. Things became more serious when Sophie appeared as Edward's guest at the 1994 wedding of Lord Ivar Mountbatten. She was even pictured in the car with Princess Margaret, not an easy royal to impress. That same year, she attended the wedding of Edward's cousin, Lady Sarah Chateau. And I think having those times together in the summer allows those relationships. I mean, we're a lot more fortunate. Around this time, reports surfaced that Sophie had moved into Buckingham Palace, a gesture usually reserved for fiancé. As their relationship became more public, pressure began to mount. The media began to hound Edward about when he would propose. When asked by a Radio Times reporter, he reportedly snapped that the more people kept quiet and minded their business, the more likely it would happen. Behind the scenes, royal biographers believe Princess Diana's tell-all panorama interview in 1995 had briefly stalled engagement plans. Jamie, he loves his koala bear he's got. But in time, love won. During a winter holiday in the Bahamas, Edward popped the question after 5 years of dating. The engagement was announced shortly after, although the Sun had leaked the news first. Reflecting on why it took him so long, Edward admitted he couldn't explain the delay, but believed it wouldn't have felt right before, and doubted Sophie would have said yes any earlier. On the 19th of June, 1999, they married at St. George's Chapel in Windsor. The ceremony was smaller and more relaxed than other royal weddings. Only 500 guests attended. The service began at 5 p.m., and there was no pressure for female guests to wear hats, though the Queen Mother still did. In a break from tradition, Edward didn't accept a dukedom. Instead, he chose to become the Earl of Wessex, inspired by a noble-sounding character he had seen in the film Shakespeare in Love. Despite Sophie's PR background, she had a rocky start with the press. One major blunder, a sting by the news of the world's fake sheikh, saw her quoted making harsh remarks about senior royals, including Charles and Camilla, as well as Cherie Blair. But what really ended her PR career was the implication that her royal status could help her business. She stepped down from her firm RJH shortly after. Edward also gave up his production company, Ardent, which had struggled to take off. From that point on, they both focused fully on royal duties. They also faced challenges at home. In 2001, Sophie suffered a life-threatening ectopic pregnancy. 2 years later, their daughter Louise was born prematurely via emergency C-section due to a placental abruption. Edward was away on royal duty in Mauritius and missed the birth, but the Queen herself visited Sophie in the hospital, a rare and telling gesture. The couple chose not to style Louise as princess, instead giving her the title Lady Louise Windsor. In 2007, they welcomed their second child, a son named James. Though he could have been styled as prince, they again chose a lower title, Viscount Severn, reflecting Edward's position as an earl at the time. Over the years, Edward and Sophie have quietly become one of the royal family's most dependable pairs. They've represented the monarchy with consistency and dignity, stepping up in key moments, including after Prince Philip's passing and Queen Elizabeth's death. Their children, now older, are finding their own paths. Lady Louise is currently studying at the University of St. Andrews, while James remains at home. Then, on Edward's 59th birthday, 10th March 2023, came a moment many had long anticipated. King Charles officially gave him the title Duke of Edinburgh, a role once held by their father, Prince Philip. Sophie became Duchess of Edinburgh, and both were said to be deeply moved by the honor. It was a full-circle moment, linking Edward directly to the legacy of the late Duke, who had always hoped his youngest son inherit the title. On their 24th wedding anniversary in June 2023, Edward and Sophie returned to the place where it all began, Swimpt George's Chapel, for the annual Order of the Garter ceremony. They stood alongside King Charles, Queen Camilla, Princess Anne, and the Prince and Princess of Wales. Sophie turned heads in a beautiful Emilia Wickstead dress, paired with a Philip Tracy hat and a Strathberry bag, while Edward wore his ceremonial robes. Their journey has had its share of bumps, including early media stumbles, personal loss, and public pressure. But they've weathered it all with a quiet, steady grace. They've never been the flashiest royals, but they've built a life based on partnership, duty, and love. As they move forward, with their children growing up and their royal responsibilities increasing, it's clear that the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh are more than just survivors of the royal machine. They are one of its strongest pillars, and through it all, they still look at each other the way they did on their wedding day, with admiration, trust, and a bond that even in royal circles is rare. And while Prince Edward's marital life has been successful, there is also a part of his life that has achieved much success. Prince Edward's philanthropic acts. Prince Edward has spent years quietly building a legacy not through drama or headlines, but through steady dedication to service. With a focus on young people, education, sports, and the arts, he has taken on the kind of work that makes a real difference, often without much fanfare. One of his biggest contributions has been to the Duke of Edinburgh's Award, a global program that helps young people develop skills, confidence, and resilience. Edward didn't just take over this work after Prince Philip retired. He had been deeply involved for years. He became a trustee in the 1980s, later chaired the International Council, and by 2015 was leading the global foundation that oversees the award. In 2023, he was officially named the award's patron, a role that had always seemed destined for him. His connection to the program isn't just ceremonial. In 1986, Edward completed the gold level of the award himself after hiking 60 miles across the Scottish Highlands. That experience clearly left a mark. Years later, he raised over £2 million for the program by playing real tennis on all 50 real tennis courts around the world. That's something no one else has done. Through the award, Edward has visited countless countries to meet young people and celebrate their achievements from Ghana to Israel, from Kenya to Chile. He has handed out certificates, attended local events, and listened to stories of determination and growth. In Ghana, he stood with the country's president to present awards. In Baltimore, he encouraged students from underserved communities to take part in the program. He isn't just showing up for the photos, he is deeply involved, but his impact goes far beyond youth work. Edward supports over 70 charities, especially those linked to the arts, education, and sport. He is the patron of the National Youth Theatre, the London Mozart Players, Northern Ballet, and the British Paralympic Association. He backs orchestras, drama schools, and sporting bodies, helping them reach more people and do more good. In 1999, Edward and his wife Sophie created the Wessex Youth Trust to support charities focused on children and young people. It has since evolved into the Earl and Countess of Wessex Charitable Trust, which now supports a wider range of causes. Still, the heart of their work remains with helping people, especially those who need it most, get access to better opportunities. Edward has also taken on many of his late father's roles, especially those tied to the Commonwealth. He opened the Commonwealth Games in 1990 and 1998 and became vice patron of the Games Federation in 2006. He has often traveled on behalf of the Crown, from Australia and the Caribbean to Sri Lanka and South Africa, always stepping in when needed. After becoming Duke of Edinburgh on his 59th birthday in 2023, Edward and Sophie visited the Scottish capital to meet members of the Ukrainian and Eastern European communities who had been displaced by war. The visit showed their ongoing commitment to supporting people through difficult times. Of course, not every moment has been smooth. A 2011 visit to Bahrain drew criticism after the couple accepted jewelry from the ruling family, despite concerns about human rights. But compared to others in the royal family, Edward has largely kept a low profile, focusing on his work rather than making headlines. More recently, he has stepped into even more of Prince Philip's former roles. He took over as president of the Royal Windsor Horse Show and became patron of London Youth, a group his father had supported for more than 70 years. He also served twice as Lord High Commissioner to the Church of Scotland, acting as the King's personal representative. In 2019, Edward was granted the title Earl of Forfar, and during a visit to the town, he was presented with a custom tartan in his honor. It was a small but meaningful way of connecting with the local community, something he has made a habit of throughout his royal life. Edward may not be the most talked about royal, but he is arguably one of the most consistent. While others chase the spotlight or get caught in scandal, he has been quietly doing the work, raising funds, meeting young people, promoting the arts, and supporting causes close to his heart. In doing so, he has built a legacy that is not only admirable, but lasting. Do you think about Prince Edward? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.